The NFL in the 2010s was truly a special place. We've seen so many superstars rise, so many fall, and now that we're in the year 2025, we're beginning to see the last of the old guard of the 2010s start to sort of whimper out a little bit. That early era of players is starting to come to an end, and we're down to just a few players left over the age of 35. So in today's video, we're going to go over what I call the NFL Unks. I've identified 13 players I would consider unks, 35 years or older, still making an impact and stars in the team, and we are going to analyze them, see who's the best one, who is the unk MVP, as they would say, who is the worst one, what positions are statistically more likely to be successful past the age of 35, and who is still holding up, who is aging like fine wine, and who is aging like milk. In today's video, we're going to go over it all, starting with the quarterbacks. I'm your host of ProBallPod, Jack Gretler, and let's get right into this episode of the NFL Unk. Now let's get right into this video by identifying the Unk quarterbacks. There are only 3 men left standing for what I call Unk quarterbacks. It's Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, Matthew Stafford. Now let's get Joe Flacco out of the way because honestly, he's been pretty solid for the Bengals, honestly. He was pretty awful as a Brown, but now he's switched over to the Bengals. He feels like they got a little juice and they got a little momentum, but I wouldn't consider him a surefire starter like the other two. He's had an okay season, 7 TDs, 6 interceptions, and a 42 rating. It's not great by any means, but considering his age, I think the Bengals are very happy to have him, especially after going through Jake Browning. He's looked okay, but honestly, he's just a placeholder at this point. But I still think we have to shout him out. We have to give him some love after that awesome Thursday night game, what they are calling the Icy Hot Bowl. Shout out to Joe Flacco. And let's get right into it with the other two. Aaron Rodgers, he is the lead unk of the NFL. He's the oldest player in the league currently at 41 years old. And you know what? He's having a pretty solid season, all things considered. 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a 54 rating. That is rock solid for a quarterback at the age of 41. And considering the context behind the Steelers' offense, I'm pretty impressed. Yeah, they have DK Metcalf and they have some decent running backs, but honestly, their wide receiver 2 is a bit of a question mark. Firemouth is good, but outside of that, he doesn't have a lot of weaponry. This isn't like a loaded team that he's taking necessarily. Not to mention their offensive line is a little shaky most years, especially this one. And overall, I think I got to give him flowers. He's good. I don't know if he's necessarily good enough to win the UNC MVP because we do have 2 candidates down the line that are just having super insane resumes for their age. But for 41 years old, he looks great. And he has been playing fluid, and he's probably going to have the Steelers sitting in a playoff spot. So no notes there. He's had a great season for a quarterback, especially at that age, and he's going to probably continue. Don't know if it's going to happen. Don't know how far he's going to get, but if he can get into the dance, you never know with Aaron Rodgers. And last but not least, we got to talk about the best quarterback in the league currently, Matthew Stafford. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you guys watched that London game, but he was stellar. 5 passing touchdowns, a cold-hearted killer, torching a Jacksonville's defense that has been pretty underrated and solid through the first 6 weeks of the season. He's looked awesome so far. 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 66 QB rating. That is impressive. And you know what else makes this more impressive? Through a little over a quarter of the season, he is sitting at top 3 in passing yards, and he is leading the league in passing touchdowns while only throwing 2 interceptions. That is extraordinary. This is MVP candidate levels. Obviously, a lot of season to go. We're not going to necessarily crown him right now, but through 7 weeks, he has looked phenomenal, and he does not look a day over 30 with the way he's been slinging the ball out there. Especially going into this season, the major concerns we had that his shoulder may be falling off and all that chaos to go into the year that basically put the Rams season potentially on ice. But he has completely proved everyone wrong up to this point. So you got to shout him out. He is the UNC quarterback at 37 years old. An MVP candidate at 37 is insane. He is on that Tom Brady immortality track. He's, of course, not necessarily at that level yet. Tom Brady was throwing 50 touchdowns at like 43. But you got to shout him out nonetheless. This is a great season for him. Overall, for quarterbacks, I consider this one of the more fluid positions to be an unk at. I mean, yeah, there's only 3 left, but that's just because there's so many young, exciting gunslingers coming in. Obviously, there's a couple quarterbacks sitting on the bench right now. Russell Wilson's a prominent one that could probably be a starting quarterback on a really bad team, but just not room with Jackson Dart coming in. There's just a lot of steam, and a few quarterbacks are able to keep that up at this point. But overall, I think long-term, longevity-wise, quarterback is one of the more successful positions when you reach that age of 35 plus. Next up for our unks, we pass over running back and receiver. There's no starting unk running back or receiver. The only one I found that could have any sort of role is Adam Thielen, and it looks like he hit the end of the road. So really sad. But for tight ends, we still have 2 going strong. Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz. And while these guys aren't necessarily leading the charge in targets or anything like that, Kelce's having a solid season, 31 balls, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns, pretty impressive. Ertz same, 23 catches, 29 yards, and 4 touchdowns. These guys are acting as sort of red zone threats for the most part, maybe getting some easy stuff for the middle. While they're nowhere near what they were in their prime as top 3 tight ends, they're still rock solid players and important to their team. Kelce does not run routes like he used to. There's no way around that, but I still think that he can be a solid contributor in the Chiefs offense. I still think he can open stuff up. And I still think he's got a little bit of juice left in the tank, even if he does retire this year. But overall, it's interesting to see how we don't see running backs or receivers, but there are a few tight end unks remaining in the league. These guys are elite of elite at their heydays, so it does not surprise me that they've been able to hold up and have roles in the league, but it's still impressive nonetheless. So shout out to them. Great work. They are solid. They are not going to be Unk MVPs. They're not lighting the league on fire. But you know what? They have their role and they execute it to perfection. Next up for the Unks, let's talk about the big men in the trenches, the offensive linemen. And honestly, I think this is the most successful group of Unk players left in the league. Trent Williams, still a phenomenal player, only 2 sacks, 2 penalties, a great PFF grade, so shout him out. Kevin Zeitler, a solid offensive guard, starting to see a little bit of regression, but I still think if he gets traded out of Tennessee and goes to a real contender, he can be a starting lineman on a Super Bowl roster. And last but not least, Lane Johnson. Dude's having another elite season. 1 penalty, 0 sacks. He's doing it again. It does not matter how old he gets. He continues to age like fine wine. He is by far one of the best right tackles in the league, comfortably, despite his age. And overall, these guys are still performing, and it's interesting to see these offensive linemen having 3 really good starters. That's probably the most in the league for like players over 35 specifically. And I'm impressed, honestly. The tackle position is holding up really well. I understand these guys are both Trent Williams and Lane Johnson are probably Hall of Famers, and that's probably why they're holding up so well. But still, nonetheless, at their age, very impressive work out there. They've continued to be key parts of their Super Bowl contending rosters. Next up, we got to talk about the defensive linemen. There's a couple good ones left, honestly. There's 3 defensive linemen I consider starters over 35: Calais Campbell, Von Miller, Cameron Hayward. Cameron Hayward has got a big time payday, and I don't see him regressing, honestly. He's been a phenom, probably deserves Hall of Fame nods at this point. He's been solid this season, 1.5 sacks. Obviously, sacks aren't everything for defensive tackles in particular, but impressive work nonetheless. He's still a crucial part of that Pittsburgh's defense. As for Von Miller, bit of a fall off, a little sad. Half sack is all. But we can tell he's definitely reaching the end, but he's trying to get a ring in Washington, so you got to respect it. And last but not least, I think this is the most successful edge rusher unk. Calais Campbell, Cardinal starter. He's been solid in that Gannon system. He's already picked up 3 sacks. He's coming back to Arizona for one last ride. And overall, a really underrated pass rusher, still continues to be productive despite his age. He doesn't seem to be having some major decline, so shout him out. And overall, impressive work from these defensive linemen. While they're not necessarily still decoy candidates like some of the quarterbacks and offensive linemen are still elite top 5 at their position, I still think they have solid effort, solid impact, and they're not necessarily falling off the face of the earth. And not last but not least, we're going to combine the linebackers and the secondaries together. There are 2 linebackers and 1 secondary player left to identify. Let's start out with the linebackers. Bobby Wagner, Washington Commanders, another really old, really successful Hall of Fame caliber player in the Legion of Boom defense. Had great years in the past, and honestly, he's having a solid season this year. An 81 PFF grade and 72 tackles. That is second in the league. At that age, that is impressive stuff. That is great for a linebacker, and overall, he hasn't really... Obviously, the explosiveness has regressed a lot compared to when he used to be in Seattle, jumping over to block extra points, stuff like that. But still, I'm impressed with what he's been doing in Washington. He's a critical part of their defense. Shout him out. And Demario Davis. This guy has been old forever, it feels like. But you know what? He just continues to chug along. He's been a solid player. Honestly, I'm hoping the Saints trade him at the deadline so he can get another shot at a ring. He's been a really solid player for them. He's been there since the Drew Brees days. But overall, I think the Saints need to start to commit to a rebuild a little bit. And he needs to be moved so he can have another shot at a ring. Solid season, 61 tackles. And last but not least, this is another position that seems to get really thin. Cornerback, there's nothing there, but for safety, there's 1 remaining. Harrison Smith, not involved like he used to be, not necessarily a top 2 safety like he used to be, but still a starting player in a great Minnesota defense, hopefully. And shout him out. He's playing okay this year, but definitely feels like we could be at the end of the road for Harrison Smith, which is sad. Now that we've identified all 13 unks, let's make some assessments and let's decide who is the ultimate Unk MVP Unk of the Year award. Let's get right into it. Now that we've established all the remaining players over 35, let's talk about who would we consider the most successful player over 35. Position-wise, I think it's got to be offensive line. There are still two all-pro players remaining over the age of 35, and they don't seem to be slowing down just yet. Quarterback is a close second, but let's consider Aaron Rodgers definitely has taken a fall off in the last couple years. Flacco wasn't even starting for most of this last season. He was a backup, and now he came back to starter and has been okay. And Stafford, well, he's been elite. I don't think it's been as prominent as these offensive linemen are when they get past the age of 35. They are still putting up all pro caliber seasons, and both are having Hall of Fame careers that are coming to an end soon, but not just yet. But with all that being said, last but not least, my official Unk of the Year award is going to go to Matthew Stafford. I get it. Lane Johnson definitely is in consideration due to having another all pro season and should be a candidate for Protector of the Year. Even if he's older, it doesn't really matter. He still has that impact, and he definitely deserves to have that award at some point. I think Stafford is the best player over 35 in the league right now. That season is just ridiculous. 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, top 3 in passing, leading the league in passing touchdowns. You just can't beat that level of efficiency at that age in the Rams offense. They look like contenders. This is probably the most successful quarterback season we've seen from someone over the age of 35, likely since the Aaron Rodgers MVP years from a couple years ago, Tom Brady and the Bucks. But as of right now, those guys, Aaron Rodgers, good season, but not as good as Stafford. Stafford could be in MVP conversations depending on how things play out, and I think he is the Unk of the Year. But that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this little analysis on all the players over 35, who's having successful seasons, who's being meh, which positions hold up the best, which ones hold up the worst. And if you enjoyed, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and I'll be back here same time next week for another video. I'm Jack Gertler of ProBallPod.